Press suggests prosecutors with the Department of Justice have prepared charges against the somewhat notorious founder of WikiLeaks under seal. This news was first reported by the Washington Post. They described it as a, quote, development that could significantly advance the probe into Russian interference in the 2016 election and have major implications for those who publish government secrets. In the court filing, unrelated again to Assange, prosecutors reportedly said charges and an arrest warrant for Assange would need to remain sealed until Assange is arrested in connection with the charges in the criminal complaint and can therefore no longer evade or avoid arrest and extradition in this matter. So how or why Assange's name is in this court filing remains to be seen. The Washington Post says people familiar with the matter say the disclosure is true but unintentional. A spokesperson for the Eastern District of Virginia told the Associated Press and the Washington Post that the court filing was made in error and that was not the intended name for this filing. Mueller has reportedly looked at WikiLeaks as part of the special counsel's investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election. The hack and publication of emails from the DNC, emails from Hillary Clinton's campaign chair, and possible communication between former Trump campaign advisor Roger Stone and WikiLeaks. The president tweeted about this yesterday, quite a few tweets yesterday about the Russia investigation. He called Robert Mueller conflicted and accused him of protecting people on the other side. The special counsel's investigation is ongoing. So far, Mueller's team has charged at least 30 people and 3 companies. They've gotten guilty pleas from some of those people, including 4 former Trump campaign aides. Heather?
Very interesting to see what happens on this today, for sure. Ellison, great to have you with us. Thank you.
You bet.
And welcome back to Hannity. So during my exclusive sit-down interview with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange in London earlier this week, I asked him what advice he would give President Obama, Hillary Clinton, and President-elect Trump. Well, here's what he had to say. What's your message at the end of this election and this process and hearing Hillary blame WikiLeaks, James Comey for her election loss? What's your message to Hillary Clinton?
Well, I don't think Hillary Clinton is particularly important anymore. But the Democratic Party is important. It's important to have a strong opposition. And the Democratic Party now has a moment where it can go through a reformation. But it can only go through that reformation if it looks at the genuine reasons for the loss. The genuine reasons, to my mind, for the loss is because the rigging of the primary process. They didn't pick the strongest candidate. So there's an internal market, which is the primary process. You battle it out with the different contenders, and the idea is that the strongest candidate is what you then send off into the main election. That didn't happen. Why didn't it happen? Because the DNC, it was rigged. The DNC no longer represented the genuine interests of the Democratic Party. And that's the problem. So my message to the US Democratic Party is now is a moment for reformation and for renewal of the Democratic Party. Take the information that we have published, which shows who the different players are and how they work within the DNC.
Learn from it.
Clinton. Learn from it and reform. And because every government has to have a strong opposition to keep it efficient, accountable, honest, etc.
Let me ask about your message to Barack Obama through this prism. He's now joined the ranks of blaming WikiLeaks and Russia and hacking for having an influence in the election, meanwhile ignoring the documents from China, his own attempt to influence the Israeli election. But what would your message to him be?
Well, there is a documented attempt to interfere with the election. We published it, which is the rigging of the primary process.
What an irony, right?
Yeah.
There's the proof, but he's not focused on that.
Right. Barack Obama, if you like, as an elder statesman, he should be helping this reformation in the Democratic Party. That should be his natural position. And to do that properly, he has to be seen as someone who's independent and trustworthy by the Democratic
base. An elder
base.
statesman.
He has to pull away entirely from that Hillary Clinton network. Pull away entirely, say this was a problem, we've got to learn from it. He's not saying that. And I think it's just a terrible thing for the Democratic Party that he isn't. And frankly, it's not good for him either. He needs to be seen now as someone that's above all that he's above the fray. He's a fair arbitrator of the different factions.
What would your advice to the incoming president, the president-elect, Donald Trump, be?
I think it's to learn from that, to learn from the mistakes that were committed by Hillary Clinton, learn from the mistakes of Barack Obama, especially in this area of transparency. If you can get the information out as soon as possible, then you can correct as soon as possible. So I think that Donald Trump, early on in his administration, he needs to set a standard. He needs to go to someone in that cabinet. Okay, you're a friend, maybe even ally, but you did the wrong thing here by the American people, so you're fired. And that standard needs to be set early, that no one is immune to betraying their role in cabinet.
He can be honest, transparent, and forthright without using the media too, which has been proven to be hostile.
Well, I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that he's seeing that he can go straight to the public and not have to massage the interests of media proprietors who have many different interests, or the journalistic class, which has other interests as well.
Very few people in the media, and there was even one major national news organization that were willing to cover the depth of what WikiLeaks revealed, what these emails revealed, what were the contents in these emails. Now, I have, for example, a lot of the major headlines. You know, you've got the collusion between media organizations, giving Hillary Clinton questions ahead of time, asking for questions that they can ask Republicans in a particular campaign. They're up to their eyeballs.
Giving Donna Brazile
is one. John Harwood is another. Katie Couric offering to showcase her personality. In other words, a fluff piece for her. And it goes further than that. Reuters, you know, then you have the New York Times and Politico. And they are literally giving them editing opportunities before an article is published. I've been interviewed by both those publications, and I can assure you that's never happened to me in my life, nor do I think that same consideration was given to Donald Trump. And welcome back to Hannity. So during my exclusive interview with Julian Assange, we discussed how WikiLeaks exposed the rampant collusion between the mainstream media here in America and the Clinton campaign. Let's take a look. I said in my country, Julian, that journalism is dead. I said it in 2008 because I was investigating Barack Obama and his backgrounds and his associations and his career and his lack of knowledge and his radical belief system. And everybody in the media ignored a lot of it. So my question to you then is, now knowing what WikiLeaks revealed about the Podesta emails, on Clinton corruption, on pay-to-play, on Bernie Sanders being cheated. All of this is revealed. Not a lot of it was covered. So what does that say to the American people about media coverage in America? Dishonest?
It's very dishonest. Corrupt is interesting. It depends on your definition. If you look at what we published in the Podesta emails...
If they're colluding with Hillary, that's not corrupt.
It's an ethical corruption.
They're not identifying it to their audiences. They claim that they're objective journalists.
It's ethically corrupt. Corruption also means something in law, which is that you're taking money in exchange.
Okay.
So I don't think that...
Collusion.
They're colluding, yeah.
Okay, because they share her political agenda. Well, why else would they collude? Or they hate Donald Trump?
I think that's an optimistic interpretation, that they share the political agenda.
Well, explain that.
It's more like, you rub my back, I'll rub yours. I'll give you, I'll give you information. You'll come to my, I'll invite you to my child's christening or our next big party, or do you know what I mean? We go to school
or a state dinner.
Yeah. So I think it's more, sadly, I think it's along those lines.
But I look at this list of what WikiLeaks exposed for...
Can I just go back to this media question? what is the line now in the New York Times, MSNBC? Okay. The line is that WikiLeaks changed the result of the election. Okay. And as editor of WikiLeaks, we're quite happy to have the credit for exposing the corruption and behavior that was occurring in that Clinton team and the DNC fixing things in relation to Bernie Sanders. We're quite happy to accept that.
Was that your motivation? Was your motivation to influence the election, or is your motivation? What is your motivation? Is it fidelity to truth?
My motivation for maybe 20 years, but 10 years with WikiLeaks, has been to publish true information that is otherwise unsayable. So we're not in competition, if you like.
You have no political agenda.
That is a political agenda.
We have no government corruption.
It's not a party political agenda. It's a philosophical agenda. We believe that the best type of government comes from a government that is scrutinized by the people when they have true information about how government and major corporations, other power actors in society actually behave.
Let me ask this. As a conservative, one of the things that shocked me about the revelations with WikiLeaks in this election cycle, it drove me crazy for years. The narrative that would be used by the Democrats about conservatives like myself as Republicans are racist, that they're sexist, that they're homophobic, that they're misogynistic, Islamophobic, xenophobic, all those lines are used. And what was fascinating, and not many people wanted to pay attention to it, and I think that's because of the media collusion, is they were exposed as using racial language, being anti-Semitic, homophobic, which led to, on the eve of the Democratic convention, Debbie Wasserman Schultz being fired. That, to me, was the type of thing that you sort of like open a window and things are not often the way they appear. Is this now a new reality going forward in terms of if the media is not going to do their job, there are going to be more WikiLeaks in the future?
Well, I certainly hope so.
Oh, we can't use it as a border. Oh, please. Protect the country, America. This is not about opening the borders to the world. We have legitimate asylum claims that have to be processed in an orderly fashion, not with a crush to the border, which is essentially a repopulation of America by depopulating an entirely different country, namely a poor country in Central America. It's ridiculous. But this is the kind of senators we have. So we want to get that sound. I'm sure, nobody saw it, but I saw it. I didn't like she was not supporting the president over the weekend. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Maybe nobody cares about this. Maybe I'm the only one who cares about this issue. Do you all care about it? Do you care enough about this to make your voice heard? Do you care enough about it to call your congressman? They got 15 days. Fund the wall, end chain migration, require E-Verify for all employers, mandated E-Verify, end this visa lottery, and do immediate border turnbacks. Non-contiguous countries, you're out. You cross this border illegally, you're out. You have to apply for asylum out of the country, not inside the country, not at a port of entry. You have to apply to asylum at a consulate in a place near you. Cannot create this situation at the border. Cannot do it. 855-40-LAURA. I want to hear from you on this. Do you think this is more important than what Russia's doing to Crimea? I do. I'm not saying I don't, or to Ukraine. I'm not saying it's not important, but what's happening in our own country, we need to solve this. And Paul Ryan can actually end his tenure in the U.S. Congress by doing something for the country, by doing the right thing here. But everyone's worried about their next job. Everyone's worried, oh, I do this, I'll be, I won't be hired to sit on these boards, or I won't get a job on Wall Street, or I won't get a job because I'll be the mean guy who supported Trump's immigration policy. They're all putting their bets on 2020 already, too. Oh, by the way, John Kasich might run for president. Another batch of sound bites we need from John Kasich saying he's going to run for president. Chris Cabrera is joining us, spokesman for the National Border Patrol Council. Border Patrol left to pick up the pieces, too, in all of this. He joins us now. Chris, I got to tell you, you and I have been talking about this for years and years. We saw it years before people understood it was a crisis. We called it for what it was, and now we see this was created in order to create an untenable situation and create the situation where now kids are getting tear gassed. Well, this is what they created.
Yeah. We've been dealing with this for quite a long time, and what's amazing to me is just recently, we decided to get serious and start sending folks down to the border. We've been calling in the Rio Grande Valley for 2 years to send us help, and nobody has. And now, instead of being able to fight this on one front, which we could have done a couple years ago, now we have the issue in the Rio Grande Valley. We have it in Laredo. We have it in El Paso, Arizona, and California. So it's multiple fronts. So now our resources are stretched even thinner than they were in the past. And like you touched on before, a lot of these folks, they are claiming asylum, but very few of them, based on our pre-interviews, qualify for that asylum. It's very narrow in scope. And a lot of people are saying that, well, I'm here for a job, or I'm here for better living conditions. I'm here because I live in a bad neighborhood. Those are not reasons for asylum. So a lot of them don't qualify, but yet they're coming in and they're taking advantage of the system, and they know they're taking advantage of the system, and they know there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, so the only way this gets changed is for Congress to do its job. Am I right about this? I mean, Trump can put the military down there, but these leftist groups will find some judge somewhere to say it's all a violation of these non-citizens' Fourth Amendment rights or something, or Fifth Amendment rights, or 14th Amendment rights. I mean, they will come up with a theory by which these migrants have a right to entry to the United States. They will find a judge to do that, Chris.
Yeah, and you're 100% right on that. The president can't be held responsible for this because there's only so much he can do. He's called for additional 5,000 Border Patrol agents, yet Congress has failed to act on that. If we had that, we wouldn't be in this situation where we needed the military to come in and help us. Congress has failed time, and I hate to say this because I hate to paint everybody with a broad brush, but they've sat on their hands for a couple years now, trying to wait out the system and get things to change. And that may be fine and dandy for your political aspirations, but what does that do for the people you work for, which is us, the American people? You're not doing your job. So if you're unwilling to do your job, you need to step aside and let somebody in who will do it.
Well, and we have 15 days left in Congress where you have a Republican Congress. Don't know the next time you'll have Republican House of Representatives. Who knows? Don't know. Nothing's guaranteed. We don't, it could be a while. I mean, remember, Congress was in Democrat hands for 4 decades until 1994. Okay, so it was a long drought for the GOP in the House of Representatives. We had the House and the Senate. Long drought. And so now they have a chance to do the right thing. Now, Chris, for our listeners who still don't understand this, we're going to take our calls as well, 855-40-LAURA. For our listeners who do not understand this, explain how the asylum process works now and why it ultimately is a failure and it attracts fraud. Tell me how it works, practically speaking.
When somebody comes in, they walk up to us and, they speak of this caravan of 5,000. We get 5,000 a week in McAllen. That's just, just plain. We're here. We've been hitting a caravan a week for months now. But somebody comes in, they say the magic words, political asylum, and they're granted the opportunity to see the judge, which they should see the judge if they have some claim to political asylum. The problem being is it takes 3, 4, 6 years. Sometimes it's indefinite as far as when they will see that judge because we're so overwhelmed. So the judges, the asylum officers are on the back end of this process instead of the front end, where if we would front load the system within a couple days or a week, we could decide, yes, you have a valid claim. Let's continue with your process. Or no, your claim doesn't really add up. You're going back. If we could do that and have it done within a matter of days, we would see a much smaller number of people actually claiming asylum. And the ones that are getting, that do have a valid claim, their claims are watered down, just like the boy who cried wolf. Everybody is screaming asylum. Some people qualify for it. Most of them don't, but they're all getting, brought into the same circle.
Yeah, and I think that also you can't have them apply in the country. You have to apply outside the country because right now when they're applying in the country, that's creating the magnet as well. You can't play. I really think that has to be part of the legislation. Can't apply in the country. Can't be inside and apply for it.
Yeah, I think the way it reads now is if you can apply inside the country within a year of you getting here, whether you got here legally or illegally, and outside you can do it. It would be more as a refugee status, but it can be done. It can be done.
Chris, this was Senator Ben Cardin, liberal, over the weekend speaking about this entire issue at the border.
You have people who are fleeing horrible circumstances in their own country. Many fear their own lives. They have legitimate concerns about their safety. They want to seek asylum in the United States. There's a